Hey buddy, it's Peter and this is the Vulcan S. So we're looking at the Cafe model and just the standard Vulcan S. It's late 2025 and these are 2025 models, and in 2025 I will contend that these are still the best light-ish weight sport cruisers on the market, certainly for the money, despite really not a whole lot of changes along the way. So you've probably heard of these bikes in the past, but what I'm going to do in this video is talk about a number of things that I probably haven't mentioned before and that probably nobody else has mentioned before, to give you a little bit different view on why I think these bikes are great and why I'm leaning towards them being better for beginners than I would have in the past, certainly given the competition out there. So we're going to talk about this compared to the Eliminator, and I've done a bunch of these videos in the past. So if you want to see other videos, just go into the YouTube search, type my channel name, Peter Lowe 1 and Vulcan S, and you will see all the videos I've done, including this compared to the Eliminator and other things, so you can find those videos. But this one is going to be a little bit different. So I can do all these things because I'm filming here at Jim Gilbert's. Jim Gilbert's Kawasaki, Jim Gilbert's Power Sports is the #1 volume Kawasaki dealer in the country, and they give me complete access to their entire vehicle lineup. So let's get going with this review. So I'm not here to claim that these are the most state-of-the-art motorcycles, not even the most state-of-the-art Kawasaki motorcycles. In fact, we're going to go through some of the platform and some of the gauges here that are less updated than the sibling mates that share parts of the chassis and the same engine in the Kawasaki lineup. But I will say that compared to a lot of cruisers, these are actually pretty up-to-date, and this has had a few little features added along the way to give you everything you would need in this bike. So what makes it kind of unique in that cruiser lineup? Well, first of all, it can fit people from 5'2" or so right up to over 6 feet. So it's got a lot of adaptation that will fit that. We'll talk about that in this video, and that I think matters. It's still got the low seat height for everybody, but being a bit more of a sport cruiser, it's actually got more horsepower in this 650 model than the Kawasaki 900 Vulcan, or the Vulcan 900. So despite that having a big V twin engine, which gives you more of a cruiser type feel, this is going to be faster. It has a little bit less torque, but it revs out and uses that horsepower to be a faster bike, and it's faster than some much bigger cruisers in many cases. So it's pretty quick, it handles very well as well, and we're going to talk about how the braking works as well, which is probably something that hasn't been touched on this bike as well. So let's start at the front wheel and work our way through. So if you've seen my videos before, you know I always like to focus on the front wheel because that tells you the manufacturer's intent. And here you have something that's a little different than some cruisers, but some of the things that are same. So first of all, let's talk about it. It's an 18-inch wheel, 17-inch in the back. So a lot of cruisers have different size wheels front and rear, but the 18 is only 1 inch larger than what you would have on any sport bike out there, which is a 17-inch wheel. Now this one here, we'll look at the sizing, is a 120 wide, so that's the same width as a typical sport bike tire, and the profile is similar to a sport bike tire. Now, it's again, the tread itself is probably, it is a little different than a typical sport bike tire, but what you're having here is just a little bit of a hint of sport. So now I want to talk about the brakes here. A lot of cruisers, just for style reasons, have a single disc here. A lot of bikes in the 650 class, in fact, every other 650 that Kawasaki sells with the same engine, so not including the KLR, has a dual disc. So let's talk about if you actually have less braking. First of all, these bikes are fairly light. They only really need a single disc. What the dual discs are going to do for you, obviously in a overall top emergency braking, they do have more power on those dual discs. But the reality is that those dual discs are really beneficial if you're doing a lot of braking over and over again. So for instance, going to the track, braking hard, getting back on the gas, braking hard, getting back on the gas. A single disc is going to give you a good emergency brake once, maybe twice, before it gets too hot. So this one is a single disc brake, and for the bike, for the weight, it's going to be fine, and it's going to outperform most other cruisers simply because the weight of this bike is lower than others. So if you're thinking you have less braking performance, what you really have is less track braking performance, that high speed, over and over and over again, high speed, heavy braking. Where a cruiser is going to have heavy braking is really only in an emergency, and this is going to be fine for that. Would dual discs stop you better, stop you a little bit quicker? Probably, but again, being equipped with ABS, you just jam on that brake in an emergency, it's going to give some motion, that kind of thing, and it's not going to lock up on you because that's what the ABS does. So that to me is fine for this bike and still gives you that sporty feel. So Overall, standard right side up forks here. Some of the other bikes, like the Versus, will have upside down forks. Every other 650 in Kawasaki's lineup has the right side up fork. So again, you still have some things that are going to keep the cost in line. There's no adjustments on the fork, which is typical for most cruisers. Nothing fancy. So you have that cruiser look with a bit more of a sport tire and brakes that are perfectly fine for what you've got. So taking a look at the heart of this bike, again, the 650 parallel twin engine is shared with every other 650 in Kawasaki's lineup other than the KLR, which is a single cylinder. So for the rest of this video, I'm going to say every other 650 in Kawasaki's lineup. But the outside casings are different. These are all liquid cooled bikes, but you can see this one has that air cooled look. It's about the style for the cruiser. Now, I've said a number of times that this 650 is one of those perfect street engine bikes. No matter which 650 in Kawasaki's lineup, they really all work as sort of a perfect engine. They've got good horsepower, high revving engines, but they also have enough torque that it makes it fun and enjoyable. Now, what's interesting about this whole chassis is in those 650 models that are shared, they all used to share basic components of the same chassis, and now the only ones that are semi-shared is the Versus and this one. The other ones have moved on to an updated chassis. Now, the Versus is a taller bike. This one is a lower bike. You can tell one of the differences is that one of the shocks have moved to the center of all the rest of the chassis, and on the Versus and this, it is on the right side. Now, that does offer some practical benefits. I'll zoom you into that in a second here and show you how you can adjust it. But overall, you've got a lot of the same similarities, certainly the engine. All of these 650 engines, they have shorty exhaust. This one just hides it better. Usually you have the you still have all the emissions components right underneath here, that catalytic converter, and then the exhaust comes out to just about here. This one has an illusion of another longer pipe here to give you that cruiser style look, but you can see it doesn't come past the rear tire there. So what that does, practically speaking, is keeps all the weight down low. All the heavy components are down low. This is just a shield on a simple decorative type pipe there that looks cool, but again, all of that's down low. So the weight on this thing is low and centered, and what that does is also contributes to handling. This is a really good handling cruiser type bike. Now, we talked about the front brake being a single brake. The one difference you have is a larger diameter rear brake on this one than something like a Ninja 650. So although the Ninja 650 has the dual brakes up front, it's got a smaller rear brake. Because this bike is longer, there's more weight in the rear of it, a larger rear brake in the rear balances some of that braking power out. So you have less braking in the front, a little bit more braking on the rear than some of those other bikes. And like I said, pretty good braking for what this bike is. Taking a look at this side-mounted shock, I just wanted to show you that you do have preload adjustment here, and there's lots of steps there. So you would move this with a tool to give you a different sort of feel and also sort of compression of that shock. What it's going to do is if you're heavier, you're going to dial that preload up or down, and heavier, lighter, up or down. And then what you have is, like I said, it's easy to reach, easy to adjust. And what that means is you can really tailor this for who you are as a rider. And the whole bike can be tailored as a rider as well. I should point out as well that this bike here does not have a rear seat as standard. You can absolutely add that as a Kawasaki accessory. And again, that might be another reason to want to adjust this shock. But let's show you what it looks like with me sitting across this bike, and we'll talk about some of the differences you can get to make it fit different types of people or different styles of riders. So jumping across this bike, first of all, the two bikes I have here are the Cafe model and the regular S model. The only physical difference is this little screen out front, although the paint schemes are different. We'll look at that in a second. But seating position wise, these are set up the same, so it's not going to matter. Now, I'm about 6 feet tall. You can see it's very low seat height. You can actually get a lower seat height by swapping that seat to a lower seat. You also have the ability to change the bars out different ways, and the pegs can be mounted in much different ways to have sort of a more mid control, more forward control. So while they say on Kawasaki's website that you can set this up for very short people or quite tall people, really what you can do is also customize that seating position. You can be my height and have the feet a little closer to you. You can have the handlebars forward, you can have the handlebars back, depending on what you want. So although it fits a huge variety of people's heights, it also can be customized for people in that mid-range of heights for exactly the riding position that they would want. So one difference between this and the Eliminator is the Eliminator puts you in a situation where you're a little bit more like this. This one's always got that foot forward type feel, which is the traditional cruiser type thing. You can also see the length of the bike. Cruisers are naturally longer bikes than something like a sport bike. The sport bike's going to have a little bit more nimble, frenetic type handling, whereas this one's going to be a little more steady on a longer cruising road. Now, for the on-the-road section, country roads, driving around, that kind of thing, this feels just as sporty as a typical, shorter bike in that sense, because they're not tighter corners, you're not going crazy high speeds. In and around town, a cruiser does feel a little bit different than some of those, just because the slower speed corners, you have that length out front, your weight's not over that front wheel the same way, but you can see here, easy to reach the ground, very comfortable. If you were to ride this all day, no matter what height you are, you can do that quite easily. The other thing is your handlebars are a little higher, so this windscreen, although it's further away from you, does kind of take a lot of the wind off you. If you were sitting up higher on another bike, sometimes those naked bikes or even those Ninjas can have a lower windscreen, and this does have some protection. And again, if you wanted to put a taller windscreen on this, you could do that. If you wanted to put a rear seat on this, you can do that. If you wanted to put side bags on that, you can do that. And that's one of the things I love about cruisers, is they're super, super versatile. So if you regularly go to work or school and you got to bring your stuff, throw some side bags on here from Kawasaki or aftermarket. They clip right on there, and you can take all your stuff with you, and the bike's style isn't ruined by it like it would be on a sport bike. So comfortable seating position, lots of practicality. Let's talk about the dash now. So taking a look at the dash on the Vulcan S, the first thing you're going to notice compared to the other 650s in the lineup is the 650s have some sort of digital display that this one does not have. So you could argue it two ways. You could say a cruiser doesn't fit that digital display, certainly not that rectangular digital display, or you could say this is dated. Now, the reality is, what do you want in your dash? Because this thing does have this sort of blue colored screen down low. It does have a gear indicator. The previous Vulcans going a few years back did not have that, so they have updated this along the way, and really you're getting everything that you could want. Now, you do not have app connectivity. You do have that in the Eliminator in its more updated dash and in some of the other 650s, but do you really need app connectivity? What do you want to use it for? If you want to put a GPS or something like this on the bike, there's lots of ways to mount that and to make that work. So what we're going to do is we're going to cycle through just a couple seconds here. You can see trip A, you've got trip B, you've got the liters per 100 kilometers, so that's the fuel efficiency, that's your instant fuel efficiency and your average fuel efficiency. Right here is your range, so once you start driving, it'll predict how many kilometers, or in this case kilometers because we're in Canada, but how much range you have left in kilometers or miles until it's empty, and it's predicting that based on how you have been driving. So it's not a perfect prediction, but it's a pretty good prediction. And then back to your odometer. So you have all of that stuff in there if you need it. You've got your fuel gauge down the bottom here, engine warning light, you've got neutral light, you've got high beams over on this side, signal lights on both sides, which is nice. Some cruisers don't separate them like that. And of course your clear speedometer there, and you have an analog tachometer revving to just over 9,500 RPM. So you've got a high revving engine. This bike really makes good torque in that mid-range section. And of course, if you rev it out, you are quite quick, much faster than many other cruisers out there. So you've got everything you need except for that app connectivity, which I would argue most people don't need. And then you don't have that digital display or that TFT display, but you really have all the functions you would have in some of those TFT displays on the other bikes in the Kawasaki lineup. So I would argue that even though this hasn't been updated that much in the past year or two, it really gives you everything you need. Taking a look at the clutch side here, we have some controls. This little dial right here is on the clutch lever, and both the clutch and the brake lever have reach adjustments. Now what that does is two things. For smaller or bigger hands, that's a really good thing to have, and as you know, this bike can be adapted to shorter and taller people. A lot of them are going to have smaller and larger hands, but it also lets you to adjust where that clutch grab point is. So if you've got really large hands and you just want to move that clutch grab point, you can do that by where the adjustment is on your clutch, or same thing with the brake grab point. So a lot of adjustability there. That's a really strong feature that a lot of bikes don't have, certainly on the clutch lever side. Sometimes they have it on the brake lever side, but you've got both can be adjustable here. Over here, simple controls. You got your high beam, low beam, you've got your signals, of course, and then you've got your horn, and you do have four-way flashers. I really like to see four-way flashers on these bikes. That's something that wasn't always on this bike, but again, four-way flashers, hazard lights, whatever you want to call them, do give you that advantage of being extra visible when you want to be, certainly if you're pulling over, trying to figure out where you're headed, that kind of thing, or even just to get driver's attention. If there's everybody stopping up ahead and you want to make sure they see you, you've got that ability to just quickly put that on and off. Over on the far side, kill switch, start switch, that's all you've got over there. So we were filming on the Cafe model, that one with the windscreen on the front. This one here is the opposite, just the base S model. Now I will tell you a couple differences here in just the paint. This one's a matte paint here, so you can sort of see that on camera. Obviously the color scheme there. And the stickers here are on top of the paint. So that's just one of the real differences there. There is a difference in the panel right there. This one's sort of a steel one. The other one seems to be more painted or clear coated. So that, in addition to the windscreen, this one does not have the windscreen and it doesn't have some of the clear coat shininess. Let's show you the difference right now as we jump across to the Cafe model. So taking a look at this tank here, one thing you can't see is there's a nice sparkle up top in the black. And then the big thing is this sticker is still a sticker, but it's clear coated into the paint. So it's a smoother, not gonna peel off sticker ever. It just has a nicer finish to it. So you are getting, you may prefer matte or over the shininess of this, or there's a sparkle in the silver as well there. But what you don't have is the stickers on the other model. You can kind of feel the edge. This one you can still feel the edge of the sticker, but they are inside the clear coat. So again, a little bit more care taken into that. If that's something that you like, that's one of the differences there. So let's talk about who these bikes are for in the context of late 2025. Now, I'm not aware of any changes that might be coming in 2026. There may be some, and if there are changes, I will absolutely cover that. But in 2025, there really is still no better sort of entry-level, low displacement cruiser than this one. It does not have the V-twin feel of its larger brother, the 900 Vulcan, but it does have more horsepower, it does have more speed, and it is more nimble, and really the mainstream competitors are not even making a bike in this class. So you have a huge advantage with this bike in performance. It's gonna handle better than many cruisers, it's gonna feel lighter than many cruisers, and you also have the ability to make this into any kind of bike that you want. You can add some luggage, you can add a rear passenger seat, you can put a windshield on that, and suddenly it becomes a cruiser. The other thing is for resale value. Because this bike is so adaptable on its own, you can sell it to someone who's shorter, who's taller, who wants one type of riding position over another, and being this 650 engine from Kawasaki, it's got that known reliability, so it's gonna be really, really versatile. And in 2025, or late 2025, despite the fact that this doesn't have app connectivity like the Eliminator does, despite the fact that it doesn't have the TFT display like the other 650s in the lineup, it still is probably the best sport cruiser that's accessible to beginners, accessible to everyone, but it's not fully a beginner bike in that the 650 has enough power to be a bike you can keep for a long time. So if you're looking for a cruiser, something that's a little bit sporty, maybe sportier than some of the other cruisers out there, but something that's still approachable, easy to ride, and fun, there really isn't a better cruiser in the marketplace than Kawasaki's 650, and that's right here in two models right now. I know here at Wheels and Deals they've got a few left over here for 2025, so by all means swing by them. It's a great time to buy it. There are Kawasaki deals on it right now as well, so make sure you swing by Jim Gilbert's Kawasaki, give it a look. And if you made it this far in the video, do me a favor, if you like this kind of stuff, find another couple videos you like, watch them to the end. That helps the channel grow. The more the channel grows, the more access I have to bikes like this, and we can talk about them more in the future. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll talk to you in the next one.